You ever see something happen in real time and just know, yeah, people are going to regret this later? Because that's exactly what just happened. The Breakfast Club, one of the biggest platforms in hip-hop culture, just made a move so wild, so unnecessary, that it might actually change how people look at them forever. And the crazy part is, they don't even realize it yet. Now, at first, everybody thought this whole situation was just regular drama. You know how the internet works. One person says something, another person responds. Blogs pick it up, fans start arguing, and suddenly it turns into a whole mess. But this is not just drama. This is one of those situations where if you really slow down and look closely, you start to see something deeper, something strategic, something that shows you who's real, who's fake, and who's just chasing attention. And most importantly, who actually started it? Because everybody online right now is acting like this situation just randomly exploded out of nowhere. Like Remy Ma woke up one day and decided to be angry. But that's not what happened. Not even close. See, for months, literally months, there have been quiet conversations happening in the background. People in the industry were already whispering that Remy was going to speak, not in tweets, not in little Instagram captions, but a real sit down, the kind where you look straight into the camera and finally tell your side of the story. And when something like that is about to happen, trust me, everybody knows. Blogs get ready. Platforms get ready. People start making calls behind the scenes because moments like that, they don't come often. And there was only one question that mattered. Where was she going to go? Now be honest. If you had to guess, where would you think Remy Ma would sit down for the biggest interview of her life? Exactly. The Breakfast Club. It makes perfect sense, right? History, relationship, familiarity. These are not strangers. These are people who've known each other for years. They've laughed together, worked together, supported each other publicly. The bridge was already built. All they had to do was walk across it. But instead, they did something nobody expected. They turned around and gave the spotlight to Claressa Shields. And that right there is where everything started to go left. Now listen carefully, because this is the part people are skipping over. Before Remy said anything, before she responded, before any clapback or reaction, Claressa was already talking, and not just talking casually. She was speaking on a marriage, speaking on a situation that wasn't legally hers, speaking with confidence like she had a position that on paper doesn't even exist. And the wild part, she wasn't being questioned. She wasn't being challenged. She wasn't being stopped. She was being supported, given a mic, given a platform, given space to tell a story that, if you really think about it, wasn't even hers to tell in the first place. And that's when things started to feel off, because this wasn't just someone sharing their side. This felt like someone setting a narrative. And the Breakfast Club, they didn't just allow it. They helped push it. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting, because if you remember correctly, DJ Envy himself went through a very public situation involving his marriage. And when that happened, he was not playing around. He wanted respect. He wanted boundaries. He wanted people to stop speaking on his household. And honestly, that's understandable. Nobody wants their personal life turned into entertainment. But now, fast forward to this moment, and he's sitting across from someone doing that exact same thing to another woman. And instead of shutting it down, he's laughing, he's engaging, he's letting it rock. So now you have to ask yourself a real question. What changed? Because the energy is not the same. When it was his situation, it was serious, it was sensitive, it was off limits. But now, it's content. And people are noticing that. They're seeing the contradiction. They're seeing the double standard. And once people start seeing that, it's hard to unsee it. Same thing with Charlemagne. This is someone who built his entire brand on calling things out, speaking truth, holding people accountable. But in this moment, silence, no real pushback, no pause to say, wait, this might not be right, nothing. And silence in situations like this speaks loud because it shows choice. And that choice had consequences. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about one interview. This is about a bigger shift happening right in front of us. The Breakfast Club made a major move recently. They partnered with Netflix, trying to take their content to another level. On paper, that sounds like a win. Bigger platform, bigger deals, more money. But in reality, something got lost because the culture doesn't just live in polished interviews. It lives in the comments, the reactions, the debates, the clips people share, the conversations that happen after the interview drops. That energy, you can't lock that behind a paywall. And when they tried to do that, people slowly started disconnecting. Less engagement, less noise, less impact. So now, whether they realized it or not, they were already in a position where they needed attention again. And what better way to get attention than controversy? So when Claressa came in, bringing drama, bringing headlines, bringing a story people were already curious about, they leaned into it heavy. But what they didn't think about was the long-term effect. Because in that moment, they weren't just platforming a guest, they were choosing a side. And the person they didn't choose was watching quickly. And that's the part people keep underestimating, because quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet doesn't mean unaware. Quiet usually means timing. And Remy, she's been quiet for a reason, not because she didn't have anything to say, but because she was choosing when and where to say it. And while all of this was happening, something else was building in the background. Something people didn't fully notice yet, because while the Breakfast Club was chasing the moment, someone else was preparing for it. And that's where this story takes a turn nobody expected. While all this noise was happening, something very quiet but very important was taking place behind the scenes. Because the truth is, Remy wasn't losing control of the story. She was letting it play out. And that's a big difference. See, while Claressa was going on interviews, talking freely, building this image, speaking like she had a certain position, people didn't realize that every word she said was stacking up. Every claim, every flex, every statement, it was all being recorded by the internet. And the internet never forgets. So what looked like confidence slowly started looking like overexposure, because people began asking simple questions. If everything is so real, where's the proof? Where are the actual moves backing this up? Where's the boxing? That's when things started getting uncomfortable. Because instead of headlines about fights, belts, or opponents, the conversation became about drama, about relationships, about someone else's marriage. And that shift, it wasn't small. It changed how people saw her, not overnight, but gradually. At the same time, the Breakfast Club didn't realize they were helping that shift happen. By constantly giving space to one side without balance, they made it look like they were pushing a narrative instead of reporting one. And audiences can feel that. They might not say it immediately, but they feel when something is off. Meanwhile, in a completely different lane, two people stayed consistent. Fat Joe and Jadakiss. No loud moves. No chasing headlines. No messy interviews. Just patience, just loyalty. And most importantly, trust. Because unlike everyone else, they didn't need the moment. They respected it. And that's why when it was finally time for Remy to speak, the decision was already made, not based on clout, not based on numbers, but based on who stayed solid when things got messy. And just like that, the power shifted without an announcement, without a warning. The biggest story of the year quietly moved away from the Breakfast Club and landed somewhere they could no longer control. Now here's where everything comes together, because when Remy finally speaks, and let's be real, that moment is coming. It's not just going to be another interview. It's going to reset everything. All the talking, all the assumptions, all the narratives that were built while she stayed silent, they're all going to be tested, because there's a difference between reacting and revealing. And from the way this has been building, it's clear Remy didn't stay quiet just to stay quiet. She was preparing the timing, preparing the platform, preparing the message. And when someone moves like that, it usually means one thing: they have something real to say. Now think about it. While one side was constantly visible, constantly explaining, constantly trying to control how people see them, the other side said nothing. And in today's world, that's rare, but it's also powerful. because silence builds curiosity, and curiosity builds attention. So when the truth finally drops, it doesn't just land, it hits. And suddenly, everything people thought they understood starts to look different. That's when people go back to old interviews, back to old clips, back to the things Claressa said early on. And that's when the realization kicks in. This didn't start as a response. It started as a setup. And that's the part most people missed. The first shots weren't loud. They were subtle, but they were there. And now, with the spotlight shifting and the right people holding the mic, those early moments are about to mean a lot more. So at the end of the day, this isn't just about who said what. It's about who moved smart and who moved fast, because moving fast gets attention. But moving smart, that controls the outcome. So now the real question is, when everything is finally on the table, who's actually going to stand on what they said? And who's going to wish they never said anything at all? If you made it this far, hit like, drop your thoughts below. And tell me honestly, do you think this was planned or did it just spiral out of control? And stay ready, because when that interview drops, everything changes.